Shana Tova, Shabbat Shalom. Last week, my husband and I took a few days away to celebrate his 50th birthday. We decided to drive to the Finger Lakes region of our great state and explore. While we are both lifelong New Yorkers, neither of us had actually ever been there before. So we asked some friends for recommendations, where to stay, what to eat, places to explore. On everyone's list, the Corning Museum of Glass. If you've never been there, then let me tell you that your initial thought was mine as well. A museum about glass? Wouldn't that just be transparent? Nevertheless, we were looking for unique things that we would never do with our children, and a museum of glass certainly checked that off the boxes. So I booked our tickets, and we were off for what I assumed would be a rather flat day. As it turns out, the Museum of Glass truly belongs on the highlight list of the Finger Lakes region. Not only did Scott and I receive a 20-minute lesson in blowing and shaping glass, providing us with some wonderful vase-shaped keepsakes, but I also discovered that there is a lot more to glass than we might see in front of us. It turns out that while we usually stare through glass to look at the world, the clear panes in our sights have much to tell us about who we are. As I wandered through rooms of glass with lessons in history, science, culture, and more, I began to ascertain that glass, in all its crystal clarity, greatly resembles the Jewish people. In order to explain this glance in the glass mirror, let me explain a few realizations that I have come to about glass. First, we are too quick to label glass as fragile. Based upon a simple, hyper-focused definition, we label glass and the box we ship it in as fragile. While it is true that glass will shatter if smashed or dropped from a high shelf, it's also true that glass can withstand a great deal of other kinds of pressure. When shaping and forming glass objects, the heat of the molten material reaches around 1,700 degrees Celsius. Moreover, while in that heated state, the glass can be bent and pulled and shaped into nearly any beautiful object. Glass is not fragile in all ways just because it is fragile in one way. We use glass to cook our casseroles, to hold the heat in our homes, to emit and radiate the light of our light bulbs, and to keep safe the vaccines we need to stay healthy. Other materials would deteriorate from these types of uses, but glass maintains its integrity and its purpose. We have undervalued glass by labeling it fragile, assuming that it is always weak, when in fact, it is quite able-bodied in the right circumstance. Second, glass has survived from antiquity until now because it is beautiful and malleable. As I walked around the Museum of Glass, I stared at tiny, simple pieces from the ancient Middle East, large, ornate structures from the Baroque period, and even dynamic works of art created during the past decade. I noticed that in each era, glass had specific functions, but was always an art form. Glass workers learned their craft from their teachers and then added new ideas, new elements to make what was already special even more stunning. Colors, mosaics, etches, new shaping tools, new chemical compounds, and more. The uses for glass were undeniable, but what is more is that glass held a place of honor and esteem in cultures around the world. Pharaohs, kings, prime ministers alike all valued glass. Chandeliers bigger than my bedroom adorned palaces, museums, and concert halls. Hyper-detailed mosaics covered jewelry and furniture, taking my breath away. Each new technique of glasswork only increased the beauty and the demand for the work. Finally, glass is overlooked. Maybe I should actually say that glass is looked through, but not looked at all too often. Most glass in our everyday lives is transparent, so it's easy to understand why we do not pay attention to it, even though it's right in front of us. We look out the window, but ignore the simple yet revolutionary idea that while we should be able to look beyond the walls of our homes and keep the elements and animals of nature on the outside of those homes. We pay attention to the road ahead of us while driving, but fail to slow down enough to notice the curved glass we are peering through. We cozy up to heaters in our home, but do not realize that the heat remains in our homes because of fiberglass insulation. We notice the freckles on our face as we look in the mirror, but do we appreciate the reflective surface that is making us count each one of them? Glass is all around us, but we rarely consciously observe its presence. I spent only a few hours in the Corning Museum of Glass, but as you can tell, it was a compelling few hours. At some point in between the science lab of chemicals used to make glass and the exhibit on how wine and glass have become intertwined industries, I started to understand that my fascination with glass was about more than the material itself. Glass had become a metaphor for how I think about and understand the Jewish people. After centuries of expulsions, hostile takeovers, massacres, pogroms, violent vitriol, more and more victimhood, we might be misdiagnosed, us Jews, as fragile weaklings on the playground, always being bullied. However, if you stop scanning historical headlines and read the full page in the book, you'll realize that while we got bruised and blackened, we survived. We are not nearly as fragile as one might believe, and certainly stronger than all of the other ancient peoples. We survive not only because of our strength, but because we've learned how to adapt our culture, our religion, our society to best fit the needs of our people. We tested out new methodologies, expanded our rituals, built new laws, and more. We have survived from antiquity until now because we can be a beautiful light unto the nations. We are the only ancient people still here because we are holy. And what could be more breathtaking than that? And yet, we are also overlooked. Not only by those who categorize us how it best befits their political agenda, but also by ourselves. There are too many of us who delay our Jewish learning, our engagement in favor of other things that seem to need or want our attention. I can just go next Shabbat. I can sign my child up for religious school next year. I can go to the Jewish community gathering next time. We push aside our own communal identity, failing to highlight the treasure, the beauty, the strength, the flexibility, and the miracle of our people. We assume that the window pane of Judaism will always be there, but we do not give heed to the strength, the heat, the chemistry, and the artistry needed to keep it from shattering. I can only hope that as we begin 5785, we can truly take notice of our own people and all that we offer to one another and the world. This year, let us curate the Jewish people and discover the brilliance in our living museum. Shabbat Shalom.